Hey guys, this is Ali from Electronic Games, and this position paper from the Video Games Europe came sort of just come across, and I am going to go through it and give you my unfettered reaction and opinions on this because some of the stuff that I've heard so far in this is just wild. Okay, so, first off, introduction. The video game industry is committed to consistently providing players with a high quality interactive gaming experiences and recognizes the passion and community that grows around its games. Whoa. Let's begin with this part here with high quality gaming experiences. High quality. You mean day one, I'm trying not to swear here, but day one patches. And even when you did release day one patches, you still released games that had game breaking bugs in them. Do I need to remind you guys of Star Wars Outlaws? Do you guys need to be reminded of about 100 different games that released in the last decade that were so buggy and messy that they were literally unplayable? You recognize the passion and community that grows around it. No, you don't. Half of you developers have shunned gamers. I could go through a goddamn list of times you told gamers to F off. And I'm sorry, we're supposed to take you guys seriously on that. This petition is supposed to be position. This position paper is supposed to be taken seriously when you guys have demonstrated everything but in that first sentence. The decision to discontinue video games online services is a multifaceted and is never taken lightly. No, it's not multifaceted at all. We know exactly why you take video games online services offline. You could easily, multiplayer games have existed for decades. For most of the video games' existence, since about the time of before the internet became a thing. I was playing multiplayer games completely offline with my goddamn Xbox back in 2000 with Halo. Do not tell me that taking online services is a multifaceted and never taken lightly. How is it that you guys can just sit there and take a game offline that easily? And we've seen games being taken offline all the time. The mobile market is the perfect example of this. How many mobile games can you still get? I could bring up the entire list of Niantic's games, and only one of their games has still alive. Yeah, Pokemon Go. Oh, by the way, that's gone to Scopely, so maybe I'll give you Ingress, which is virtually no one knows about. But almost every single Niantic game that they have released is now gone. Because you guys decided it was not, and we know was not commercially viable. Do not frickin' lie to us about this stuff. When it does happen, the industry ensures that players are given fair notice of the prospect of change in compliance with local consumer protection laws. Which local consumer protection laws? Because the local consumer protection laws vary from country to country. The whole reason that we now have Steam is required to give us the 2-week, 2-hour refund policy is because of the consumer activists in Australia pointing out that these did not meet, the digital goods on Steam did not meet the same requirements as physical goods. Australian lawmakers deem that digital goods must be treated the same. Therefore, that is why you now have that. I mean, for all my love of Steam, it's not perfect, but at least they actually got onto that and fixed it. Local consumer, okay, cool. My local consumer protection law states that you now actually have to keep your game online indefinitely. What are you going to do? You don't care about local consumer protection laws. You base them on local consumer protection laws of your chosen country. You don't care because local consumer protection laws are not the same in every single nation, and all it takes is one, and you will basically go, screw it, we're not going to sell to that country anymore. The only reason we want the EU to be involved in this is because you're not going to have that option then. The only reason we want America to do this is because you're not going to have that option after this. If it's New Zealand or Australia or Israel or maybe Japan or South Korea, you could probably get away with it. But we know that there are a lot of countries that if their consumer protection laws are not sufficient for you, you don't care about them. So, I'm sorry, that this is absolute BS. This document explains the reasons given why a video game company may decide to discontinue the functionalities supporting the online video game and why this may lead to the video game editors no longer playable. Online video games are interactive entertainment. Congratulations! All video games are interactive entertainment, you morons. Doesn't have to be an online game to be interactive entertainment. The term video game implies that it is interactive entertainment. Unlike a book or a film, an online video game is not static work. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. First off, you want to see how many books have been rewritten over again through publishing? Second of all, what about board games? Are they a not static piece of work? The thing is you've also, and notice the term here, online video game. You specifically said online video game. Hang on. Halo 2 was an online video game. That was a static piece of work. It did not change at any point. It was dynamic, if you want to call that. It ran for a while and then you had to shut down the servers. We all know why you shut down the servers. Halo 3, same thing. Halo Reach, same thing. This idea that it's a static piece of work is nonsense. You want to see a static piece of work? Right frickin' here. Right here. This is a static piece of work. This has in fact, actually, even better. The later versions of Pokemon have online capabilities. The online services have been disabled. The game is still functionable. Do not tell me that this is that online, you cannot maintain and make sure the game is still functional after your online services have gone. And I'll point this out. Again, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. No, let's go Pokemon X, Pokemon Y, Oris, Sun and Moon. All have online functionality. The GTS, etc. The GTS is no longer available. I can still go play those games without any online services required. Now, there are certain things that I might miss out on now because they were one-time events, but the fact is that I can still play those games without needing to go online. Yeah, to get all the Pokemon to complete my Pokedex, I probably need to get a couple of versions and an extra DS to do so. Not a problem. That's not the issue. The thing is that I can still play it offline. I know someone's going to counter me and say, oh, it's not an online game. It has online functionality. Halo. I've got Halo Master Chief Edition. I can't get half of the stuff required if I'm not online. Which means I fail to get certain achievements and the likes because you have deemed that such. The reality is that the situation is I don't know when that's going to get pulled. I'm not going to be playing Halo Infinite or any of the next Halos because I don't want to play any Halo beyond Reach because they're not Halo. They weren't made by Bungie. They're not Halo. And Halo 1 is still good. I can still play Halo offline. If Halo Studios, as it's called now, Microsoft offers an opportunity to link directly to my friends on my Steam account, I could then play multiplayer without their need. Heck, Age of Empires used to have that capability. StarCraft used to have that capability. Counter-Strike had that capability. Online games used to not require your services. So this idea that, it's a static work, BS. That is not the issue. You are trying to obfuscate the problem. Online video games entertainment combine numerous elements of artistic and intellectual creation with software programming and server infrastructure. No, it doesn't. The server infrastructure could be completely taken out and you could still make the game function. Guess what? You can do play peer-to-peer direct playing. But you don't want that because you want full control. This is obfuscation of what's really going on behind the scenes. Online video games evolve over time after their initial release. They don't have to. Perhaps if you didn't release them as a buggy mess, you wouldn't have to. If you actually had good balancing, you wouldn't have to consistently update them. Heck, Age of Empires never got an update. Providing consumers with regular new content. You don't need to provide regular new content. If you've created the game in a very effective manner and actually produced it correctly, you shouldn't need to provide new content. The reason you're providing new content is to make sure people stick around. If your game is losing traction after a certain period of time, perhaps it's time for your game to move on. New experiences, patches, and updates. Again, when I'm seeing the same experiences across things like Call of Duty and Fortnite, exactly the same now, there is no new experience. The patches are due because of your incompetence, and same with the updates. Now, look, I'm a developer. I'm going to be doing some updates on my games because there's certain things I missed out on and make it in time. But that isn't a case of... The fact is that my players still get the raw game. Even if I didn't do those updates, they would still have the game, they'd still have the experience and everything. They get to the end of the game, it's their choice whether or not they play again or move on to something else. It's not my power to control whether or not they're going to do that. And as a result, I have made sure that they can actually play the game even after I stop servicing it. This is highly valued by players and required to compete in the market. No, it doesn't. Seriously, you want to talk about competing in the market? This is what my daughter is starting to play. My daughter would rather play Sonic than any of your new games. Okay, she's 3 years old and she's playing what her dad wants her to play. But the fact is that it's time to move on. People are going back. You're not competing. You're competing with games that used to be. How can you keep competing with games that used to be when they are so much better than what you're producing now? It involves significant ongoing development expenditure over years, sometimes decades. I've actually done the calculation on some of this and found that if you remove most of... I think I actually did some calculation on this and I figured out that most games, if you sold 1 million copies of one game, it was something like, I figured out like based on what most profits are for a video game, like if you get $1 million profit on your video game, you could run your server for approximately 11 years without any extra costs. The reason you actually increase those costs through microtransactions or subscription fees is because you're greedy. Like most games you could actually sell straight up and run on that period of time right up to the end. even after the ongoing development expenditure over those years, there is nothing to stop you from making sure that there is something in there that says, hey, when we pull the server offline, you're still going to be able to play the game. This line here is completely irrelevant to what Stop Killing Games is asking. You can have this already put into place before release. Or you can set it, you can realize that you're coming to the end of life and say, hey, we're putting in one more patch, and that's going to be for the end of life. After that, it's you guys. Throw it off to the mods to fix, because half the time the mods seem to do a better job than you. Do I need to remind you about every single freaking Bethesda game that has had to rely on mods? Video game companies put a significant investment into creating and developing the best interactive entertainment experience for the passionate player base. No, you don't. No, you don't. I've seen your comments about your player base. I've seen what you guys say when people complain about something. You do not put a significant investment in. You're complaining that your budgets are $400+ million, and yet, now you're like, oh, we're going to have to up the price because it's so expensive to produce video games. You guys don't care. We can see through every single one of your lies. You do not put enough investment into the games, or your games would not come out as buggy messes at all. The right to decide when, how and when and for how long making online game services available to players is a vital in justifying the cost and fostering continued technical innovation. This is just gobbledygook. As rights holders and economic entities, video game companies must remain free to decide when an online game is no longer commercially viable and to end continued service support for the game. Great. No one's asking you to continue supporting a game that is a loss. We're no longer asking you to keep the service running. What we're asking is that you allow the player base to take control of it, to grant some aspect that means the players can still play the game when you have stopped servicing it. No one is asking you to continue these games indefinitely. Imposing legal obligation to continue service support indefinitely or develop online games in a specific technical manner that will allow permanent use will raise costs and risks of development of such games. No, it won't. One, no one asked you to support indefinitely. We're asking for some sort of end-of-service situation in which the players can still play the game when you're finished with it. There is no will raise costs and risks. No, it doesn't. You guys were doing it before the internet. That, again, if I have an original Xbox, an original copy of Halo, I can still play that game. I can still play the multiplayer with my friends who also have Xboxes and that game. I can still play Pokemon and trade with my friends who have a Nintendo system that plays the game. This stuff used to be part and parcel. I mean, what extra costs and risks? You guys already charge us far too much for video games. You're saying, oh, we need to up the price to $80 plus microtransactions, plus subscription fees, plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this. Are you really telling me that you guys do not have enough money to do this? The risks, perhaps if you guys got some proper developers in and stop firing or forcing your best talent out of the industry, you wouldn't have such a problem with these risks. It will having a chilling effect on game design. No, it won't. You already have had to make sure multiplayer is incorporated in the game design. Your online service has already had to be made sure. All you're doing is now you're just having to add an end of life. It won't have a chilling effect. You're just lazy. and act as a distinctive to making such games available in Europe. Oh, there it is. The admission. If European Union passed this, if any other country had passed this, except for the United States, let's say New Zealand or Australia or Brazil, you'd have no problem. You wouldn't say anything. You'd just be like, don't care. You'd let it go and you'd never release a game in those countries ever again. Because we know exactly why. New Zealand and Australia are going to have no impact on this whatsoever. The thing was with the digital good consumer agreements with Steam was that it did actually impact Australians, and Steam was unfortunately had a lot of Australian customers. They couldn't back out of it. They had to implement it. But for future games, oh, guess what? Australia did it. We're out. But if you lose Europe, you lose massive amount. I think, if I remember rightly, United States and China are the two top, from Newzoo data, 2023, I think it was. US and China are approximately $6 billion. They're roughly even in the amount of money that they spend, and all of Europe combined is not that far behind. That's the thing. China, United States, and Europe would kill you guys. That's why you oppose this particular petition. You haven't said anything about the Australian one. You haven't said anything about anything going on in New Zealand. You're specifically talking about Europe because Europe is a huge loss if you lose that money. It is far from a trivial modification or simple addition to the game development phase. Bullshit. The thing is, and there's a couple of guys on LinkedIn I follow who have been talking about this. When you do multiplayer, you need to incorporate it early on in the design phase. You can't just go build single player and then swap to multiplayer. It has to be actually incorporated in right from the get-go. All you're going to... the thing is that working with Unity, I know how easy it is to do the server. Here's the thing, is you could actually open up your API. We're not asking you to reveal your code. We're asking you to reveal your server API so that people could create their own servers. Release a server application to the public so we can do it. It is trivial. You're just lazy. It would ignore material reputational safety and security concerns. Yeah, that's why you have Denuvo, Easy Cheat, and other systems that actually are potential security violations on people's computers. For those who don't understand, what a lot of these DRM services do is they go into the deepest part of your kernel security on your computer. Basically, there's essentially what you call rings. Ring 1, Ring 2, Ring 3. Ring 1 is the most secure part of the kernel. And they go right down into that. If someone potentially has the ability to hack into Easy Cheat or Denuvo, they could actually potentially break security on your computer and as a result, these DRM services put you at risk. You don't care about security concerns. What you care about is reputation, material reputation. No, you care about your finances. You know that the only reason you put anti-cheat in there and Denuvo, etc., is to prevent people cheating in multiplayer games. And you're doing it. You've sacrificed your customers' security for your own economical purposes because you'd rather that your customers potentially lose their computers than someone cheats in the game and you lose a few $1,000 because some players decide to leave because they're sick and tired of the cheating, rather than actually putting a proper stopgap and manually handling cheaters as you go. While there are video game companies that have elected to enable their online services to live beyond that it is being processed, their commercial viability, this and must always be a matter of choice, and it will depend on what is reasonable appropriate for specific games companies audience. Okay, so if one company can do it, why can't all companies? Because you're lazy. Because you're corporately greedy. Because you're greedy. You're greedy and lazy. That's the answer here. All video games with the digital or physical copies are licensed. Ooh, no. Here's the thing with my physical copy. This physical copy here, this. I can do whatever I like with it. You can't stop me. And it's brilliant because you've got no services, DRM, or anything to stop me doing it. Yeah, guess what? I can go do whatever I like with this. I don't care what you say. As for my digital purchases, yeah, you control what I can do with them. Here's what I do with as a developer. I'm a developer, and I have actually specifically outlined and stated that as part of electronic games terms of policy and stuff. The user has bought the game; they have the right to do what they like with it. I don't. You own it. You want to. I mean, I can't do much in the way of passing it around on Steam or anything, but when I take it off, when I've decided that my games are no longer viable, I'm just going to put them available for people to download wherever they like. You're not going to need Steam or anything like that to help you deal with it. And that's my view on it. As is the case with virtually all digital works when consumers purchase online games. Again, this is kind of a red herring because what are you determining as being an online game? Halo 2 was an online game. I can still have a copy of Halo 2 and do whatever I want with it if I own a hard copy of Halo 2 and an Xbox. I got Pokemon Platinum inside my 3DS here. That had online capability of the GTS. Technically, it's an online game. I can do whatever I like. I can get a Game Shark or Easy Cheat, not Easy Cheat, Codebreaker or anything like that, and hack the game. What are you gonna do? Regardless of country or sale. Again, this is kind of the bizarre thing is that this is kind of again a red herring because if a country because we know exactly what happened if New Zealand or Australia or Brazil, one of these minor countries, sort of said, oh no, games are digital products, meaning they follow the rules of products, not licenses, you'd stop selling in those countries. Again, if Europe or America or China, maybe Japan, turned around and said no, you'd have a problem. Because, again, if you stop selling in those countries, because, like, that's the thing, is you cannot state this, regardless of country or sale. No, if a country specifically states that it is a digital product, not a license, you know that this means nothing. And all you'll do is just not sell in that country. It's a throwaway statement to try and make that sound like, oh, this is actually the situation. We have the power to determine if it's a license or a product. No, you don't. What they acquire is a personal license to access and play the copy of the game they have purchased in accordance with the game's terms of service. This, again, is a little bit of a red herring because it's not entirely true. Sid Alpha has actually done a really good video on this at one stage about terms of service. and contracts. And there are actually there is in, I think, in the United States, a law that says that if a contract would force a person to do something that they wouldn't normally do, I think it is, or something like that, and they don't do it, and you deem it's not a breach of contract. I think it's something like, his example was something along the lines of, if I was doing a contract to paint someone's house and part of the contract said that I had to murder someone, and I didn't murder someone but I finished painting the house, I would still be paid, because that part of the contract is deemed null and void, because it's something I wouldn't be expected to normally do. And that's the thing with these terms of services, is that there is situations where there are other parts. I think even Ross Scott from Accursed Farms, he pointed this out, that there are statements in a lot of terms of services that are potentially illegal due to their vaguity, such as they have the right to terminate your account for whatever reason, whenever. It's dodgy language, and I think you'll find that in many cases that's not actually allowed. There will be cases of, you have to, like, there is potential for opening that up to lawsuits and stuff, and I think you'll find that this is not, that the terms, according to the terms of service, there are issues around terms of services that you've actually got to, that are not necessarily what you think they are. The other thing is, with a lot of terms of services is, and this is a huge problem, and you're probably going to find that at some point there will be a legal requirement that a terms of service has to be specified in like 5 points within a page or something down the line, because terms of services are egregiously long and they actually end up contradicting themselves half the time. The consumer does not acquire ownership of that video game. Come take it. Come take it. Seriously, come take it. These clear intellectual property rights underpin the entire market and enable strong investment that the industry has seen for decades. There is no legal uncertainty about the status quo of video games. You're right, there is no legal uncertainty because there is no legal situation. The problem is what we're seeing, like what they're bringing up about comparing it to books or film, there is a huge difference here in that books are not sold. Copyright law has actually been, and intellectual property rights has gone through many changes over the years regarding its how it's established. It used to be, in the original form of copyright, trademark, intellectual property rights, is that it was deemed that you had to, that the inventor or the discoverer or the person who created the works had control over it for a certain period of time. I think it was something like 15 years or something. I can't quite remember. And that was the period of time, and then someone else could come in and could use it. This was to give these people the opportunity to build up their own work and make money off it before someone else stepped in. Then it got changed to being to the lifetime, and then you end up with Disney, or the Disney scenario. The problem is with video games and what was understood at the time with a lot of intellectual property is they didn't have the concept of, well, what about having it as a service? Because a lot of times what services was things like fixing a cart or maintaining horses. So, like, the service was actually something that someone did for for someone else, and there was a physical tangible change as a result. Now services have become a situation with gym services, where again this is a bit different because the gym is running through. What you'll find is that in gyms they do have to give you a notice that if the gym is shutting down or no longer will be serving you, and then if the gym shuts down, they do have to provide some form of compensation. But there isn't a license. I suppose there is a license, but you get the idea. Digital services, and where this is very, very different, and I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, but the thing is with a book is I don't own the intellectual rights behind the book. I own the book, and I can do whatever I like with the book. I don't own the intellectual rights of Pokemon. I own this cartridge of Pokemon. I can do what I like with this, but I cannot put Pokemon back on. So this whole idea of it being, they're worried about intellectual property rights is nonsense. There are copyright laws, etc. in place that will protect your intellectual property rights for 96 years. Okay? So this is nonsense. This is them going, oh, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. It's them trying to make the excuse that they can force players off because it's no longer commercially viable and force players onto the next game. Unfortunately, that's going to backfire them. Maybe I'll do a video talking about this at some stage. Why an obligation on video game companies to provide only a limited time of end-of-life plan is disproportionate. Only a limited... Again, this is misrepresenting what Stop Killing Games is. Stop Killing Games is not asking for a specific means of end of service, not end of life, end of service plan. And what it's asking is that video game companies provide some sort of plan that accounts for end of service. It's not clear what the initiators of Stop Killing Games petition seek to achieve as a legal change. That's because it's an initiative. The initiative is not a legal framework. It is supposed to provide an understanding that brings forth like a petition to the European Council, and then the European Council and the lawmakers and those who actually understand legalese actually are able to create the laws surrounding it to fairly balance between producers and consumers. But it is not clear. No, it is very clear. We want developers to have some sort of plan in place. We haven't specified what the plan is. They just have to provide some sort of end-of-service plan. It appears to be in combination of a requirement to provide online service for as long as the consumer wants them, regardless of price paid, and or requirement to provide a very specific form of end-of-life plan where the game is altered to be enable private service to operate. Okay, so no, no, that's not what we're saying. The online services is not. We're not requiring you to provide the online services. We're requiring something to be put in place that would allow the game to be playable once you've finished serving the game. Regardless of price paid. No. Again, if they're paying a subscription, you can. If you're providing the service, you should be legally allowed to charge the service. If you are going to be doing it as a service model, and this is the problem with games at the moment, is I go to the gym. If I pay an upfront fee to the gym and I don't take anything else, I expect to be able to use the gym whenever whenever I want for how long I want. If the gym shuts down, there needs to be some sort of compensation. But gyms don't do that. Gyms do a subscription-based service. This is the problem with video games, is that they're asking for an upfront cost and then nothing afterwards other than through microtransactions. So if you remove microtransactions out of the equation for a second, you have no means of being able to, like, you cannot complain when people are expecting this to be, I have unlimited access, because you haven't actually put a subscription fee on it. Again, there is no specific end of service thing that we've asked for. What we've asked for is that there has to be something in place. We're not asking necessarily for private servers to be operational. You could do something as simple as peer-to-peer. That's not like, you could do peer-to-peer. You could allow people to set up their own private servers. What is the issue with allowing people to set up their own private servers when you're finished with the game? I legitimately want to know, because it doesn't make sense that you're saying, oh, well, when we take the servers down, we can't hand over the server code, a server application for people. Yes, you can. And on single player games, why do they need online services? So again, this is obfuscating the problem. They're trying to say, this is what you want, we can't do this. Well, actually, you can, and no, it's not specifically this. We do not believe these are proportionate demands. Of course you don't. Because it means that you won't get the money. I mean, if you, if Call of Duty suddenly, like, let's say Call of Duty, the latest Call of Duty gets taken offline, and people would rather play a previous version of the latest version of Call of Duty rather than buying the new version that comes out, yeah, you're going to lose money, of course. Like that again, we see through it. Online video games are complex operations. So all video games, I don't get what that, like, what's with that. And again, if it's a single player game, what's the problem? They offer interactive features that are supported by multiple servers, enabling functionality of ever-increasing complexity. Why is it being ever-increasingly complex? Are you that incompetent? I'm sorry, this, I don't get what you mean by ever-increasing complexity. This is an excuse. This is them trying to obfuscate the situation. This is integral to the modern gameplay experience that players expect. No. Again, I'm playing these again. My daughter, 3-year-old daughter, is playing Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega. Like, people are actually going back and playing older games because they are better than the current generation of games. This phrase is exactly the same phrase as the whole, they expect high quality graphics. No, players don't. The high quality graphics situation was impressive back in the golden age of gaming because it was pushing things to whole new levels we'd never seen before. Now the graphics, the realistic graphics, this high quality graphics, is beginning to wear thin. We're actually, you go take a look, most people are playing 8-bit games, preferring 8-bit or pixelated, or what people are referring to as stylized graphics now. People don't necessarily want high fidelity graphics anymore. This modern game experience is nonsense. This is the same as the modern audience. I mean, again, this is more fun than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'm not kidding. And the graphics are horrifically horrendous compared to what I get now on Pokemon. I'm playing Halo in the Master Chief Collection in the original format, graphics-wise. It looks better. It plays better. And that's not to throw shade at 343 regarding the graphics. They have amazing graphics department to where they can't actually make games. I mean, and I guess like someone's going to turn around and say, oh, well, what about, what was it? Marathon. What about Marathon? They had not that great graphics and people hated it. That's because the visuals looked like vomit. Like I have stated in other posts regarding this, I can look past graphics, but the color palette was the huge problem for me. One game I'm actually looking forward to is Thomas Brush's Twisted Tower. Looks phenomenal. And the graphics look cheesy, cartoony, very Xbox 360-ish. Again, it's not about... Like, this is what I'm trying to say, is you do not need this online play for experience. People are happy to play single-player games, and the single-player doesn't need the online experience. As consumer expectations for more engaging and evolving content increases. Based on what? These online features are increasingly becoming intertwined in the overall gameplay experience as opposed to being limited to a dedicated online mode within the game. Sorry. Again, one of the biggest complaints people had with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I think it was the XP boost. A lot of people didn't have... A lot of people had a problem with the way you guys have been handling a lot of the situation with online games. You're saying, oh, we need these online capabilities entwined into our single player. No, you don't. Again, where is it? How many times am I going to show this game to you guys to make you realize that this has never been the situation? You guys are making this stuff up and you are pushing it on people. And that's the thing, is you're pushing this onto players. Players don't care if there's an online experience with a single player game. I don't need my online experience when I'm playing Total War. I never am I going to play Total War multiplayer. It's just, unless it's just the battles, but I'm not interested in that. I like the campaign. It's just insane. Same with Civ, the Civilization series. You cannot play those games multiplayer because the insane amount of time you have to dedicate to them then. Just cut the half that multiplayer stuff out and it'll be fine. In many video games, this interconnected dependency makes it difficult to cleanly segregate online systems from online functionality. Here are the ways in which players and companies would be affected. Okay. There are ways of bypassing this. And if you actually have built very strong architecture and actually have thought about this in the long term, you don't need this. This interconnected dependency. If you've got this interconnected dependency in your game, you've got bigger problems. A good game developer knows that you should be able to take the player's character and just drop it somewhere and everything will work perfectly fine. This is programming 101. A statement like this indicates to me that your programmers need to be fired. You need new programmers. Because if the online is so intertwined with everything that goes on, how did you test the game? How do you do modular testing? How literally everything within a game should be modularized. I should be able to have enemies being able to work without any other systems involved. I should be able to not think about anything but this one little module. I should be able to pick out a state machine and run the state machine without any extra components available. If you can't do that, your code's wrong. I mean, seriously, guys, if you're into programming or game design, pick this up. I had it recommended that I read this, and I'm glad I did. This is Clean Code by Robert C. Martin, aka Uncle Bod. Basically, he is saying what these guys are saying is completely contradictory to what he will tell you. That to me is scary. That this is the mindset of these developers, and you guys are going to run it. No wonder you're having so many bugs, because your code is so intertwined. This is your thinking, and you need to get out of this mindset. Player safety. Reduced or no player protection. Yes, because it's for your security, don't you know? Requiring games to run on private servers revolt in the inability for game companies to continue to protect players from illegal or harmful content or conduct. Why do you care if you no longer serve the game? Like, I'm sorry, but when you're no longer servicing the game, like, this is the thing. And I get there's probably some legal complications around this. But if you're not in control of the private server and you're no longer serving the game, what legal obligations do you have to player security? Content or conduct. Again, like, you've stopped servicing the game. Why do you care? You're not making money out of the game. Yes, you can still control the IP, but controlling the IP doesn't. If you're not providing the service, doesn't mean that you can be legally held liable for this stuff. I get it in the case of many situations where games are currently being controlled by the company, and then mods are putting out content that may be deemed inappropriate, or, as you said, that I understand, because now you're legally liable. But if you no longer service that game, I'm failing to see how you are now culpable for the server. I mean, what would happen if I managed to hack into your servers and do this stuff? And all this stuff got leaked, and harmful content got leaked out. Who's responsible? You. But if it's my private server and the stuff gets in, who is responsible? It wasn't your server, it was my server that allowed it. And again, this should be a case of, well, shouldn't it be up to the private server to decide whether or not they want to allow this content on their server? Shouldn't I be allowed to decide whether or not I want lewd stuff in my game? If you on my server, like, what is this? Why are you the ones that are making this decision for private servers? Why are you liable for private service decisions? As the moderation of player safety teams would no longer be involved. That's the point. You are no longer involved. This is no longer your responsibility. In particular, cheating could become rampant without proper enforcement. Not your problem. Why is this your problem? This is... I used to do tournament organizing. If someone cheated, that I was the one who was liable in my tournament. If someone cheated in a different tournament, not my problem. Why? I don't... This is a thing. If someone cheated in my tournament, I'm held accountable because I should have put measures in to make sure the cheating wasn't possible in my tournament. Another tournament, I can't enforce it. I'm not in charge. I have no control. Again, this is a case of we want to make sure that you are safe. No, it's you want control. You want complete and utter control over what people can say, do, and whatever in the game. And if it goes to a private server, which you have no control over, and you're making an excuse that, oh, well, we would be the ones, we're the ones that feel that you need to be safe. Again, that's bullshit. Reporting systems designed to allow players. Again, this is your systems. Why do you care what happens on a private server? I'm moving on. This is a demonstration of the complete nutter. This is ignorance. This is either ignorance or malicious lying. What they're saying is absolute nonsense. Environment, the ability, the absence of effective moderation is simultaneously frustrating for the ability of EU digital data coordination against such content. Again, I don't know what the EU digital services coordinators are. Again, why is it your problem? This is not only prevents a safety risk for consumers, but also leads editors. You literally have England right next to you. To brand reputation. Yeah. Oh, this is where it really is. A brand reputation. You worry, because like, seriously, Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse recently became public domain. And people made all sorts of horrific stuff with those properties. Has it damaged the brand? No. Mickey Mouse and Winnie the Pooh they're actually still in the top two, I think the third and fourth for the most valuable franchises in the world. I'd have to double check and look it up, but I'm pretty sure that they're still number 3 and 4. Their brand reputation hasn't been damaged at all. This has nothing to do with brand reputation. It's nonsense. Increased security risks. Releasing game code or server binaries to facilitate the consumer, facilitate the creation of private servers. Could expose game companies and consumers to bad actors. We're not asking you to release the code. I kind of get the idea of not releasing the code. There is certain proprietary stuff you want to keep hidden. But at the same time, what's to stop you releasing an effective API for a private server? Why can't you release an application that allows people to run the service on their own computers, to set up their own private servers? Like, this is an excuse. I know there's some people saying release the code. I get it. Like, releasing the code can sometimes be dangerous. There are some things that, yes, you should release the code, because there needs to be some sort of transparency in how things are done. But I can't think of anything particularly when it comes to video games. So this situation, I don't think we are saying release the code. What we are trying to put forward is server binaries. Again, it releases an application. I suppose, but someone could hack the application and figure it out. Okay. You could do work on a separate server style system that will allow you to do a quick switch. Yeah, it's going to cost you a bit of money, but the thing is that if you build a separate server system alongside your current one that is slightly different in the means of how things are handled, then it's going to fix a lot of the problem. This one, I get. This one, I will accept that there is some valid argument here, but at the same time, like I have to say, like, you really think that this is going to be a huge issue? Um, I yeah. I mean, for online multiplayer, okay, fine. This is a legitimate step. For single player, what's your argument? Um. Oh wow, I'm sitting at about an hour, and I'm only just about to reach page 3. How many pages? 5. Reach it 4 and a bit. Okay. Impact on companies. Significant engineering architectural challenges allowing players to run private servers would present significant engineering and architecture challenges for many games due to the way in which the online features integrate. Again, this sounds like you've got this sounds like bad programming. This really sounds like the person who is writing the code is bad at their job. Good server architecture, you shouldn't have any problems adjusting and expanding upon. I've had it screamed at me by higher ups in my work. Solid, solid, solid. And what does O stand for? Solid. Open to expansion. If your architecture is so complex that you cannot add something, can't expand upon it or add something easily to it, you've got a problem, and you need to reevaluate how you're doing your code. This is a full structural problem within the company at this point. I mean, literally, again, architecture in all my games, I could easily separate the states out. I could easily just separate a state and throw it away and throw in a new state. In and out, no problem. There is no issue regarding this. Negative impact on investment in games, jobs, growth, consumer choice. Tell me you're lying without telling me you're lying. Negative impact on investment in games. Ensuring an online game can work without official server support requires a significant investment of engineering resources. Again, you're greedy. You're either greedy or you're lazy. Or ignorant. One of the three. I mean, you guys are already spending $400+ million on your game. How much is it going to cost us? You're taking 10 years to build these games. How many more years is it going to take to add in this? If you were to tell me that it would take that you were producing your game within 3 years and it would take you another year to implement this, maybe I could see some point to it. If your budget was $50 million, and this was going to cost you another $10 million to implement, I could see the argument. The problem is that your argument, like, you guys are spending $400+ million on these games, and they're coming out as buggy messes needing day one patches. And even then, we're still finding game-breaking bugs. The idea that that this is going to cost you a whole lot more in time and resources is nonsense. Because you're already not putting you're not putting in the time and resources where it's needed to be in the first place. It'll have a negative impact on jobs. No, it won't. Actually, if anything, it would increase the job market because you're needing to grab in a new team to help implement this stuff. Oh, but you've already managed to completely screw everything up because you can't have a separate team that works on this sort of thing. Yeah. Growth, no, it won't kill growth. If you want to actually see what's really going to impact this, it's not that stop killing games is not going to be the thing that has a negative impact on this sort of stuff. It's the way you guys have been treating the customers for years, and the fact that many of us are going back and playing older games. Consumer choice. It doesn't impact consumer choice. Dude, my Steam library has something like 500 games in it. I've only played about 50 games. That's less than 50, less than 10% of my game. I've played probably less than 10% of the games in my Steam library. And I'm not even including what's on my Switch, what I've got on my DS, what I played on Xbox. So this idea, like, already, like this is, and when I buy games, I don't buy them at full price anymore. Most of the games I own were bought through Humble Bundle or on sale. So this idea that this is negatively going to impact consumer choice, guys, I'm not even buying your games anymore. I really, really want to play Stellar Blade, but I'm looking at it and going, I can't afford to pay this amount of money to play this game. And at the moment, I just got tons of other games that I've got to get through and play anyway. I'm back going through the original Final Fantasy series. The very first Final Fantasy game I ever actually played was Final Fantasy 3 when it came onto the DS. And then I played Final Fantasy 13, I played Final Fantasy 14, 15, 16, and then went back and played Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2. I actually replayed Final Fantasy 3 again, and now I'm in the middle of Final Fantasy 4. You could make the choice of not releasing a Final Fantasy game for the next 50 years or 20 years, I'd be perfectly happy. I got plenty of Final Fantasy to finish. So this idea that it's going to hurt consumer choice, consumers have too much choice. We don't know what to play anymore. And as I said, like, I'm playing games that I didn't play when I was younger because a lot of them kind of missed me. Mostly because I grew up in New Zealand, and New Zealand was about 20 years behind the rest of the world. So going back and playing a lot of these games, it's kind of cool. It's a lot of fun. One of the most popular things at the moment is Side Scrollers Plus does Blabs Versus, and she's playing games for Blabs is playing games from the 80s and 90s. What's more, like where I live, there's an arcade in the mall. The arcade's almost packed all the time, and the average age is under 15. I'm not kidding. You guys, I'm going to probably do an actual we'll do a video on this in much more depth to explain this, but you're losing the next generation, and you guys don't realize it. And you're talking about this being what is going to hurt you. It's not. Many of the costs that game companies would incur but in implementing an end-of-life plan would have to be incurred towards the end of the commercial life of the game, when it is no longer commercially viable to continue to support. No, you do the end-of-life plan at the beginning. If you're implementing an end-of-life plan at the end, it's already too late. You should have had this plan at the beginning when you designed the game and talked about it. I'm not saying like, oh, okay, we only plan on having this game out for 5 years and then we've got to kill it. You could easily go, you could say, oh, this game only lasts for 5 years, and then we're probably going to have to kill it. It ends up going 10 years. What we're saying is that you could end up saying, oh, we're going to go 5 years, oh, it only goes for a year. What we're saying is that you set up the plan at the beginning. That's what you should be doing. Requirements to implement such plans could lead to less risk taking, few investment projects in developing new games. Again, we don't need new games. So I really am going to have to do like a whole video essay on this because it's just I don't think you actually understand what the situation is, and potentially fewer jobs. No, it won't. If what you're saying is true about how much more resources it needs, then you need more you need more developers. You need more people. Therefore, the job market grows. This is where you know that these people are talking frankly out of their ass, because they're saying, "Oh, it requires more resources and requires more resources, but fewer jobs will be available." If you need more resources, i.e., human manpower, more jobs. Ultimately could lead to an increased cost for consumers and less choice. You guys are already... you guys for the last 10 years, last decade, have been increasing the costs secretly on the customer non-stop. Microtransactions are your increased cost on the user. You are now telling us that we have to give in to paying $80 a game because your budget costs are ballooned out of control. You pay your DLC, everything. You guys have already your budgets are so out of control already that you have had to nickel and dime players, and people are actually leaving games because they're unaffordable. We know that this is nonsense because you are trying. You guys tried to put the tariff scenario in the United States as an excuse for increased costs in games. Digital games were supposed to cost us less because you didn't need the physical resources to build them. What happened? Oh, you drove the price up. You guys, I actually, this is nonsense. This is absolute ludicrous nonsense. You know that if they could get away with it, they would actually increase the costs. And they're trying to make this excuse like, oh, you guys don't want to increase costs. This will increase the costs. You guys would increase the costs anyway, if you could. Reputational harm. Allowing players to run private servers with online interaction possibilities could. That word could needs to be in big, black, bold, capital letters. Italics, underline, in quotes. And players using those games in ways that don't align with the game company's brand values. You've already moved on. You don't support it. So why do you care? Again, the fact that the game has done so well that people are willing to build a private server for it should it be an indication of of your reputation being that good. And the fact that people know it's a private server means people would understand and know. Yeah, you get a few crazies on the internet, but this is nonsense. This is just like, if you want to see reputational damage, take a look at DICE with Battlefield 5 and how they did massive damage because they decided that it had to be more Fortnite-like. The reputational damage to Call of Duty at the moment is insane because they have to make it more like a Fortnite-style game. It's nonsense. The reputational harm is because of what you guys do. Impact on intellectual property rights. Erosion of intellectual property rights, mandating game companies to keep their online games operable post-official support would undermine their rights and autonomy in deciding how the intellectual property is utilized. There is vital interest in maintaining effective copyright protection, including protection against circumvention of technologies that could control access to copyrighted video game software, where such circumvention is undertaken in circumstances that would lead to the unauthorized public exploitation of games. That is a whole lot of nothing. Mandating games operate post-official support. No, okay. First off, no. No one's asking you to operate the games post-official support. The rights and autonomy in deciding how the intellectual property is utilized. No. That's not how that works. Again, hey, see this? I could go hack this. I can do whatever I want with it. Hell, I could go in, change all the Pokemon to nudie cat girls. What are you going to do? How does that infringe upon your intellectual property rights? It doesn't. This is a whole lot of nonsense because I can already do it with a lot of other games. People have already done it with a lot of the games. Competition from community-supported versions, such as a requirement, could lead to community-supported versions of the game competing with official versions. Yeah, but you're not officially supporting it anymore, potentially jeopardizing the financial investments of the video game company. You are not making any more money out of it anyway, so why do you care? This would lead to confusion between trademarks. No. That confusion. No. And the original trademark holder may be held responsible for actions undertaken by communities. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. Suzuki is not held responsible for what I do with my Suzuki vehicle. I mean, who's the publisher? Yeah. I don't know. The publisher of this book. I don't know who the publisher is of the book. I could take this book and draw nudie pics all over it and then sell it off to someone. The publisher's not responsible for that. I mean, if Suzuki no longer decides that they're going to service my car, I take it to a mechanic. Suzuki's not responsible for anything undertaken by a different mechanic. This is a whole lot of nothing. It's trying to say, oh, but we would be held responsible, and we don't want to be held responsible. Forfeiture of licensing and reproduction rights. Allowing consumers to create or run modified copies of online games would necessitate game companies to either license additional rights or refrain from enforcing them, effectively leading it to a forfeiture. Okay, I think I know where this one's going. And I've heard this argument for Nintendo's aggressive stance. The thing is with this is why I kind of don't believe any of this is due to the amount of fan fiction and fan games and other fan work and mods. The other is like the number of mods and stuff. I don't think that it would actually impact them whatsoever. Generally speaking, I'm pretty sure that a lot of this would not actually interfere, and so yeah, I'm not convinced that this would affect intellectual property rights. Sorry. Okay. Constraints from third-party IP. Game companies often utilize third-party software and services which may have licensing terms restricting use commercial life of the game, prohibiting sub-licensing to players. You're not sub-licensing. You're not sub-licensing. Thereby hindering the modification or patching of games for private services. In particular, this could jeopardize them. Stop using these third parties. I've already said like why a lot of these third-party services are dangerous, and the reality is like I don't. I'm willing to actually say that this is a cop. This is a weasel. This is weaseling out of it. I don't think that there'll be a problem. And if there was, then perhaps you could potentially just shift. Like you could easily shift some legal stuff out of the way. I'd say. I'm not like, I'm not a lawyer in this, but I think. Sorry. I would say that I wouldn't be surprised if that what they're doing is trying to say, oh, but it's the third parties that are responsible. You strip the third party stuff out if it really is the case, and then private servers deal with it. Constraint from third party services. Yeah, so I think that's probably going to say the same. Games depend on third party services. Use third software services, such as platforms which games offered to the consumer. Again, I think I saw someone bring this up about whatchamacallit. Android and iOS because of how they do it. I call bullshit on this. If there was really a problem, what it is that so platforms which the game is offered, this is bullshit, because if you're no longer selling the game, you're probably not going to sell it on the platform. So if you're not servicing it, it's probably going to be taken off the platform anyway. So why do you care? Second of all, you could just add this into a legal, like put up a torrent for it or put it on some sort of site that would happily distribute the game free. So this is nonsense. Releasing the code for those services, which would be necessary should legal requirement allow player communities to run the game. No, it wouldn't. You don't have to release the code. You can use API. You could just set up APIs to obfuscate the code, or write these in an obfuscated way. If you're that worried about it, quickly obfuscate the code. May not be possible as this would potentially be an IP infringement. No, it wouldn't. Tell me you're a pro. I'm pretty sure this is not true. Furthermore, game company servers are increasingly run on the cloud. If cloud servers are discontinued, this necessitates either shutting down older titles or creating costly workarounds. Again, we get it. You're running on a cloud server, the server gets shut down. Again, you should have had something in place for this. In the case that happens, why can't you let the players take over? And if the server gets yeah, this is excuse. This is an excuse. It's being lazy. All of the above would also affect compliance with PEGI ratings. No, it wouldn't. Where a game has a PEGI age rating and offers multiplayer functionality, the game company is contractually bound by PEGI. No, okay. So I know this is a lot of crap because I have actually seen stated on in games that online play and that it actually may not be compliant with the age rating. And we know you guys don't actually care about age ratings because you don't prevent 10-year-olds from playing Call of Duty, or if you guys had 10-year-olds playing Mortal Kombat, you guys wouldn't care. So again, it's like, oh, but pushes. It would effectively push our PEGI rating up. No, it won't, because you're no longer in control of it. So yeah, the importance of consumer protection laws. Notwithstanding their applicable license structure, all video games offered to players in the EU are subject to European consumer protection laws, which includes robust transparency and fairness obligations on game companies and ensure that game companies act reasonably when determining online support for games. Then why don't you? So yeah, this is actually nonsense because we've seen you guys don't care about consumer laws. You guys have released games in states that are unplayable and you've faced no repercussions on it. Human Conduct provides consumers with warranties and redress rights within respect to both game and physical medium on which game is made available, but these laws do not transfer ownership of the game to consumers. Come take it. Come take it. Come take it. Again, nonsense, because we know that if this was actually true, we'd see a lot more compensation out for players, and we wouldn't see stupid little compensation things like players receiving credits for for cosmetics in the game. There would be actually some serious something that they offer something far better. Games are licensed to the consumer in accordance with the terms of service. Again, a lot of these terms of services may actually, and Ross has pointed this out, many of these terms of services may actually be illegal. These set out the terms upon which consumers may access and play such games and the situations in which such license rights may be terminated. You are literally telling people that you can kick them off at any time for any reason or no reason at all. That is not a situation. Consumers are informed that their access to online games are associated servers may terminate and are informed with sufficient notice in cases where that does happen. Define what is sufficient notice. Most of the time, when people get banned, they don't get any notice. They're just banned, and then they have an email saying your account has been banned. Sufficient notice would be, hey, your account's going to be shut down within 2 days. Like, sufficient notice. This is nonsense. Transparency. Players must be given reasonable prior notice before any termination of access to the game. You ban people without warning them. Reimbursement. The Digital Content Directive provides consumers with price reduction and reimbursement rights in certain circumstances, but also with repair and replacement rights if a game service fails to achieve conformity with certain required warranties. You're already outside the warranty, and the question is how long does the warranty last for? I have not actually seen a warranty on a game, so this is saying nothing there. Service duration requires EU legislation requires that the service aspects of online video games be provided for a reasonable amount of time, taking into account all relevant factors. It would be disproportionate for a specific duration to be imposed, as this would need to be valid of all types of services, not just games. Okay, do it. Literally, it's the Emperor Palpatine meme. I don't get what the problem is here. Literally, like, and it's not necessarily saying, "Oh, we're going to provide." You have to state that you have to provide this X amount of time minimum. It's more like you just have to have something prepared for when you do take it down. I mean, look, Concord only lasted 2 weeks. We're not saying, "Oh, everyone should sue Concord now because they failed to meet the one year of service." Like, no one's saying that at all. What we're saying is that Concord should have probably wouldn't have had anyone actually doing it anyway, but it should have had something at the end when it took the servers down. Fair terms. The Unfair Terms Directive prohibits game companies from imposing terms on consumers that significantly imbalance the parties' rights and obligations to the detriment of consumers. That hasn't stopped you. Good, we're at the end. Video game companies are committed to the preservation of games and their culture. Then why do you keep destroying games? It is important to separate the legal proposals being made by the petitioners for specific end-of-life requirements for commercial video games from the question of preservation of games as creative cultural works. You guys don't preserve games. You know who preserves these? People who own them. There are companies that actually go out of their way to put in brand new batteries to make sure these work. There are companies that will fix and still produce batteries that will work in this. You guys don't do it. And you guys don't care what happens to the game service if it goes offline. Goes offline and has become unplayable. That is not preservation. That's a game gone. That is the difference between a book and a video game. Is that a book, once it's in print and exists, you cannot do anything about it. You cannot destroy it. Digital books are susceptible to this. Fortunately, we have the Gutenberg project. Guess what they do? They take books that have passed that have entered the public commons and preserve them in digital form. What's going to happen when they can no longer afford to keep their servers running? There's going to be a lot of books that are potentially going to be lost forever. Already, books have been lost forever because preservation was not put in place properly for these books. Film's about to end up in the same way because of the lack of preserving film properly. Doctor Who now has hundreds of episodes missing from the classic Who era. We can never get those back because of ignorance, like what you're doing now. You're saying, we're dedicated to preservation. No, you're not. Because we've seen it happen with other mediums before when people did not do their due diligence and making sure the preservation was maintained. So this is what we're talking about. You guys are making the excuse that you're trying to preserve games. We are committed to it. No, you're not. Video Games Europe and their member companies are committed to and actively support serious professional efforts to preserve video games. Again, no, you're not. If you were, games like The Crew would still be playable in some form. I would still be able to play all of Niantic's games regardless. You don't care about game preservation. In fact, we've seen what happens when you remaster a lot of games. You don't care about the original content of the game. And recognize the industry's creative contributions under circumstances that do not jeopardize the company's rights under copyright law. Again, you're not surrendering your IP. That's not what we're asking. We're asking you to allow players to have the ability to continue playing these games long after you are no longer servicing them. Games like Pokemon, games like Sonic, games like Age of Empires. Yeah, if I want to play the original Age of Empires, and I mean, there's a remade version that works with the latest version of Windows. But if I want to play the original, let's say that goes. The only way I can play the original Age of Empires is to get an XP system that will allow me to play it. But the thing is I can get Windows XP. I can still find it. Yeah, I might have to get it and might have to sail the seas and visit the land of Tortuga. But this is the thing, is I can still play it. My mate does the exact same thing. We both have our own Age of Empires copies. We can still play against each other because infrastructure was put in place that would allow that to happen. For example, members regularly donate game copies to hardware to preservation organizations and support museum exhibition. That's not what... That would be like taking... Let's say this is the only copy left of this book, right? It gets put in a museum. No other printers ever made. No one can ever read the book again. The reason books continuously get republished every so often is so that people can keep reading them. Because, yes, we do understand physical media deteriorates over time. Books deteriorate over time. The sad thing is that I actually own several first edition copies from Rudyard Kipling. And the sad thing is those books will eventually disappear from time. And the first editions will never ever exist ever again. And we understand that. But just putting it into a museum is not game preservation. Because here's the thing, Rudyard Kipling books are still printed today. People can still read Rudyard Kipling. But if you no longer have the services available to play the video game, I mean, the only reason that this is probably going to survive and that you'll probably may be able to get hardware copies of Pokemon in the future is because people have generated ROMs from it. And we can continue to put these onto cartridges in the future. Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to bootleg them because Nintendo's not the one doing it. But at the same time, you can just turn around and say, hey, look, Nintendo, if all I'm doing is recuperating costs for the materials used to produce the cartridge, what's the problem? Like, a non-profit organization that does this sort of thing, that just keeps replicating these games over and over and over again for consumers who want to buy them. Why is that an issue? That's the thing, is donating game copies to organizations and support museums isn't game preservation. It's like the Model T. Only car enthusiasts who go out and refurbish Model Ts will ever be able to drive Model Ts ever again. And you have to pay a huge amount of money to do it because there's so few left. But the Model T being in a museum is not preservation, it's historical record. That is a huge difference there. Let's see. Electronic Arts recently supported use of Battlefield 1 in a World War I exhibition Notre Dame de Lorette in France. So again, that's... Again, you just put the game in a museum. Okay, great. But not everyone's going to get to go to that museum and play the game. Not everyone is going to get to the Vatican archives to read the books in the Vatican archives. Not everyone is going to get to the Louvre and see the Mona Lisa. I mean, this is why we have copies. This is why production of copies has become so important. Again, as I said, what about... Go look at what happened with the BBC and Doctor Who. We've lost so many Doctor Who episodes they can never be recovered again because of ignorance. Other video game companies have undertaken gigantic tasks creating video game libraries to support the preservation of games. Yeah, and what's to stop you from removing those libraries? Like, there's a link here to the Embrace the Game archive, but what's to say, oh, we're just going to stop? Like, right now I can play a huge back catalogue of Nintendo games on the Nintendo Switch and the Switch 2. So long as I'm paying the subscription service. What happens if I stop paying that service? What happens if they decide, no, we're just getting rid of this now? There's nothing to stop them doing that. And that's the problem. However, the industry's innovation and economic activity depends on strong copyright protection for the software and other creative works that are its lifeblood. No, your lifeblood is making sure that that your customers are happy and that they're purchasing your games. I can tell you right now, if you dump the Halo IP into the Creative Commons, Halo would be bigger than ever before because there will be someone out there who will take Halo and make the most epic game possible out of it. In fact, there's actually a group. Let's just double check. I think it's who are they? They're Branching Sickness. They're kind of making a Halo-like game in Unreal, and from what they've demonstrated, there's more Halo than anything 343 has released. But the thing is that your copyright protection is not your lifeblood. Your lifeblood is your customer. And that's what you need to do, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to force your customer to keep buying the same garbage over and over and over and over again. And there's becoming a point that we're not having it anymore. And preservation should not be confused with uses that could conflict with a normal exploitation of the work by the right holder or unreasonably prejudice the legitimate interests of the author. Again, this is kind of nonsense because we've seen what happened. We've seen people do this. The Star Wars Expanded Universe. George Lucas used to completely own the rights to Star Wars. And there was the Star Wars Expanded Universe. He licensed the right for people to build on the universe. Didn't destroy his IP because other people were writing for the Star Wars. It's the same as and this idea that people could exploit the work. People fanfic for God's sakes. So at the end of that, basically it comes down to the main points that seem to appear in that is that basically they're lazy, they're greedy, or they're ignorant. And they have, basically, I think what they're doing, what appears to me is that what they want is that they're going to try and make sure that you are buying the next Call of Duty slop over and over and over again. I'm going to leave it there. If you want to help stop killing games, I will post a link down in the description below. And cool. Catch you all later.